Wait, is Taryn AI enabled?
She is not. She is not AI enabled, but she is a strong chicken. I'm really hoping I don't end up with chicken poop on me in the middle of this episode.
I'm sorry, this is going to be one of your long damn shows. You're going to be like, Craig, I got to edit this stuff
No,
down.
all good.
I still think there's still a lot of investment needed in technology to enable return to office.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Born ready. Perfect.
Born ready.
Okay, we are back for episode 2 of Cutting Through the Noise, and I am joined by a very exciting guest host today and a really cool friend in the industry. We've gotten the chance to kind of do some creative riffing on different event videos over the last couple years here. Mr. Craig Durr, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Craig.
Thank you for having me. This is so cool. I'm really excited to see you getting back into where we get to see Josh across the board, right? This is your back to your YouTube series. I love that. We don't have the cowboy hat. I understand.
Right.
But everyone grows up. Everyone grows up. I'm sorry. Did I say grow up? I'm sorry about that.
That's how I feel as I'm trying to grow up. And so I put it on the shelf, but it's comfortably close, right? But
no, I'm glad to see you launch something new. I know the work behind it, so I appreciate you trusting me to be one of your early episodes.
No, I appreciate you trusting me with the whole coming into the mess of a whole new show that is yet to be fully defined. So thank you for being here, and we're gonna talk today about something that's near and dear to your heart, right? That you are considered an expert on, but to so many of us. The rest of us out there, the noise of hybrid work and specifically RTO is deafening at times and a little too cumbersome to try to wade into. So I'm looking forward to diving into that with you. But before we do it, if you can give everybody a really quick intro on what you do, what your sweet spot is right now, and kind of a little bit of where they can find some of your content out there. We'll revisit that at the end of the show just so people know next steps. But who is Craig Durr? What do you do?
Okay. Well, Craig Durr is what's called an industry analyst. I work with a company that I founded called the Collab Collective. Now, if you're not familiar with what an industry analyst does, we work as kind of a business consultant within a certain technology vertical. My area is what I call enterprise communication and workplace collaboration. Ta-da! Hybrid work plays in there magnificently. Now, what I do is I do both consult into technology companies that help provide some of the devices, the solutions, the technologies, but I also try and distill that message and help get it out to the market in an understandable, clear, concise way to the people that need to absorb it, the IT decision makers, the IT administrators, and those IT managers.
Right.
Even the end users also. I'm fortunate that I have some of those people who might trust my opinion on what I think of certain devices. So I kind of help bridge some of the noise, cutting through the noise, to get between what people are doing from a technology point of view to what they need in the street. Now, how do I have permission to do this? If I can, I actually worked in the technology field for a long time. I managed a product team for 9 years. For Poly, HP now, through all that acquisition. Before that, I led a UC initiative for Dell for several years. And before that, I worked with Microsoft on their Exchange. Now that's on-premise, but I was part of the team that first brought out Exchange Online, which is...
I was looking at your LinkedIn profile earlier to see the timeline of these roles. And I'm like, you were working on the Exchange team right about the time I was trying to get the Air Force base that I was working on off of Exchange 5.5 and into Exchange 2003. So it's small world.
So
sounds like you are a perfect fit though with how your role in taking complex pieces and breaking them down. You're a perfect fit for the show. So I'm glad you're here.
I appreciate that. And actually, it's really cool. I mean, I'm fortunate that people trust me to share insights. So I have a chance to speak to Zoom, to Microsoft, to WebEx, to Google from the platform plays. Obviously, I'm very, very, very protective of any information they share to me under NDA, but that holistic point of view helps everyone, and not only the technology providers, but hopefully the people who are trying to figure out how the heck do I make this work. And that's what I like. It's kind of fun.
Every time I see you doing what you do, it looks busy and tiring, but very fun. You look like you enjoy what you do. So And we will provide links here on the video and, of course, at the end as well, to where people can go and find your YouTube stuff, your profile, LinkedIn, anywhere else we should drive them. But before we shift into talking about hybrid work and RTO, one of the things I want to do in the show to try to keep it fun and interesting to those watching is keep the human element front and center. So before we even talk about the important stuff, we're doing show and tell, just like we did in grade school. And I've given you a little bit of homework there. You found something cool to share with us, to tell us a little bit about what makes you tick and what kind of things are cool with you. So what did you bring?
So what I like to think that I do a little bit differently in my space is that I lean into video as a form of communicating with people. I really enjoy it. It's like this. You and I are just chatting over a cup of coffee. Hint, hint. It's a web series I have called the Collaboration Cafe.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that video are these nice snackable nuggets of information, and it's humanistic, and you get to do this. So I do a lot of video at shows. I love going around doing what I call new product alerts or catching up with people. And a lot of that is with what's kind of cool in our industry is that the equipment is becoming more accessible to people like ourselves. It's somewhere, but the prosumer has gone up a level, and the professional broadcast has been becoming down in terms of price point, that you get these really cool products we can do that. So what am I excited about? It's a black box. No, what it is this. One of the key things I like doing is having the chance to do these videos, and audio becomes really important. And I'm not one that walk around with a microphone. We have some friends like Neil Flooster. He's great. He does that. He does a great newsman type style.
I'm the same though. I have a hard time with the handheld mic. So
yeah. So I like having wireless microphones. Now, typical microphones are 2 transmitters to 1 receiver. That's right. In fact, all the videos you and I did, we had the same microphones, the DJI mics, mic 2s, and it allows us both to transmit back to the camera. But I've been trying to get to have more people. So I found a brand called Ceramonic, and people might be familiar with this if they're in the industry. They actually have a 4 transmitter wireless microphone set, and I like the fact that it lights up. Now,
yeah, it is. It's just kind of slick, but look, I mean, you get the battery right there when you open it up, and battery levels.
So with a transmitter that has the ability, it still has 2 inputs, but it's able to receive content from 4 of these wireless mics. Now, what I like about them is they do allow me to plug a lavalier or lav mic in, because I like that discreetness there. Because then the technology is not in the way. That's one of the things we like to do. Now, what's really cool about this is it's got some other cool things. Our mutual friend Tom Arbuthnot, for example, does a lot of podcasting, and he does it traveling around and what have you. One of the things, look, I'm pulling through all my bag stuff here, is these I can take as USB into a camera, take it into a laptop. But sometimes I might want to go into some kind of sound mixing board, something like Zoom or something like that.
Okay.
So this has got a really cool cable set that goes from the what's it called? TSS the ring TRRS to XLR out to those boards. So now all of a sudden I can take those 4 mics, keep them as separate channels, putting them into a nice accessible prosumer grade or mixing board, and I can manage those channels. So I'm interested not only in trying those at some of our show floors, but we might be able to do a little mobile podcasting element too.
This is why I like comparing tech notes with you, because you stay ahead of it and you know what you're doing with the gear. It's awesome.
Well, I mean, I get lost in all the acronyms. I get lost in all the stuff, but I love asking questions, and people are pointing stuff out to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll try that. I mean,
that is awesome. No, that was a good one. Thank you for humoring me on the show and tell piece. All right, I brought a little something to show, and it's getting impatient. So I will go ahead and show from my side. My assistant will bring over the item that I've brought for show and tell here.
You have an assistant. And, you didn't even tell me. Oh,
so we've got Taryn the chicken here, and
wait, is Taryn AI enabled?
She is not. She's not AI enabled, but she is a strong chicken. I'm really hoping I don't end up with chicken poop on me in the middle of this episode. But
that's great.
I did a couple videos lately with chickens out there, and I thought, okay, let's actually meet one of them. But the deal with Taryn here is Taryn has an eye that really went awry, and so I told my family when we got chickens to start raising them for eggs and all that. They're chickens. They're working animals. They're not pets. They are farm animals, and we can't get attached. We can't do all this stuff. If one of them gets sick or has an issue, we have to kind of deal with that in the way people do on farms. And yeah, she got her eye pecked by one of the other chickens, and my wife could not bring herself to go a different direction. So she had too much of a heart for the chicken, the right amount of heart. Convinced me we needed to take her to the vet. So the chicken went to the vet, and way too much money later, we got her on a regimen for a couple months. I was sitting there holding this chicken while it
Yeah.
got pills put into its mouth and eye stuff put into its eye. And so this is the one chicken that gets a pardon, and
Oh,
thanks to the compassion of my wife.
is it
And
Taryn with
we'll
a T?
actually,
Taryn?
yeah, Taryn, that's
Taryn.
Taryn. Yeah,
Does Taryn have a nice eye patch that you can kind of?
she
Can she play
should.
pirate?
She should. That's the frustrating thing with chickens. If anything is different or off, they will attack it. So we
Oh,
can't have her looking too much more different from the rest. But she's a tough little bird, and I'm
good
gonna
for
get her out
you.
of here before I end up with a mess on me. So thank you, sir, for that.
I didn't realize you had an assistant there. And actually, you know what the best thing about that is right now? With the way egg prices are going, you are probably loving having those chickens right now.
You know, we've let the neighborhood know they're for sale, and we
Ooh,
give them a break, obviously, from what you get in the stores. But it is stupid how much you can get for a dozen eggs these days. Really, really stupid.
I
But
bet.
thank you. We've got through the first part of the hey, we're humans. Here's some cool things about us. So now we'll transition into actually talking about what people are probably here to hear us talk about. And that would be the world of hybrid work and RTO and the reality that exists in the mix of all that. So before I kind of get lean heavy into the RTO piece of it, with you being an analyst in this space and an expert really on the world of hybrid work, I wondered if you could give us kind of a brief state of the union, if you
Yeah.
will, of where hybrid work sits in. And why I'm looking for that is because hybrid work has been a term that's actually been around for a couple years now, right? And it's gone through several iterations and had several people kind of trying to define in their own way what that means, with there really being no consensus on the real, because it's constantly evolving. So, from your perspective and your professional analysis, what is the current state of hybrid work?
It is confusing. It is
Extinct. I love
crazy.
that.
I'm going to tell you, I think what it is people need to embrace the idea that it's not one size fits all. Actually, I'm sorry, but I was bringing up an image all of a sudden because I had a great reference I wanted to do with this. Maybe I'll share it with you afterwards and you can kind of do this. But
Slice it
hybrid
in,
work
yeah.
is, here's the deal. Hybrid work, sometimes the name becomes taboo in people's mind. And it's unfortunate because it's pretty darn descriptive of what we have to do. And I think it was that we got tired of hearing this. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to do from either the end user or the people, the managers enabling it, that we started hedging on other words, modern work, just the way we work, the way things are going. And that's okay. It's true. I think we had a C-level change in this experiment during COVID that allowed us to see that certain organizations, certain individuals, and certain groups of teams can be productive not working in the same location all the time, right? That's kind of at a high level taking place. Now, it is not one playbook works for everyone. There are a lot of people that still obviously need to do their job in person. All our very important frontline workers, everything from medical staff to people working in retail and things like that, obviously they need to be in person. And there's some other really valuable things also about hybrid work, which is knowing when to be in person versus when I may not need to be. So the way I look about it is I think of it as like a distributed work spectrum. And if you think about the extremes, you've got people that might be fully remote. Some of the companies you hear like Atlassian do something like this as well
Right,
too. And
right.
where they've always started as a virtual first company and everyone's been remote. And then you've got all the way to the far extreme where people are mostly office bound. And that up to 5 days a week. If they're working more than 5 days a week in the office, we need to talk about
Yeah, that's
their,
another problem, right?
their priorities. But, and a lot of that tends to be, there's a lot of traditional industry tends to be located on the East Coast, like financial services,
Of course.
insurance. A lot of those things tend to also do that. That's where you see some of these People like, what's his name? Jamie, what's his name? The CEO, very adamant about getting
Dylan. Yeah.
into that. But then you have this piece in between, and we call it hybrid, but I think there's really a couple of choices that people need to keep in mind it takes place. Hybrid is any type of thing where you might work in a variety of locations. Typically it's home, and then typically it's in a corporate provided or a company provided space. You might be a third space also you work with as well. Now one of the first things is people might have this extreme that hedges towards fully remote, which is like a hybrid choice. And that's basically saying, you know what, Mr. or Mrs. Employee, you got the choice. You choose what days you want to be in the office with a minimum number of days required. That is one form of hybrid work. And, people kind of tend to do like 3-2 or 2-3, whatever it is.
Some combination, right.
Yep. Then there's in the middle, which is kind of like a partial choice where they say, hey, you know what? We're going to have 1 or 2 fixed days in the office, and then you can choose what you do the rest of the days. So the idea is like, as an employee, I know that I have the option for 2 days in the office, but one always has to be Friday, and I can pick my other one. Right. So I might do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. And then you have fixed days, and that might be still the extreme but the company is defining people coming in the office. Everyone's going to come in Wednesday and Friday. Hey, you can still work Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from home. You're still hybrid. I'm just going to optimize around while you work. And I think as people start maturing and thinking about these different variations of it, you can start seeing the possibilities of how it works. So I'm giving you an overview. I'm going to tell you one of the key mindset shifts I think that make people succeed here. We have in our agenda, we're calling it right now RTO, return to office. I think if people's mind shift would go from return to office to return in person, they will start honing in on when and where they need to be sitting across the table from someone to get work done. It's not about just going to a physical location in the office. It's about when do I need to be in person to actually get whatever task, job, project I have done. And I think combination of looking at these different variations of how we describe hybrid work and kind of going to like the first degree level, the first problem idea of why I'm trying not return to office because I need to help justify the purchase of an office space or the cost of it. But I'm trying to enable some kind of in-person activity, helps break it up. So I'll pause there. I gave you a lot of stuff there. I don't know if that's too much.
And that's perfect, right? Because that's what we're just trying to set the table. Where are things currently? What is let's dispel some of the, talk of hybrid work that's hard to really lean into. And then you touch right on where we want to go next, right? With the RTO mandates. And I think that's a really interesting observation that gets tricky with RTO mandates, right? But saying, what if we reword it in a different way that is more reflective of what we're trying to solve for?
Right.
Then it changes the way you think and approach it, both as an employee and as an employer. That's one of the difficult things, though, right? Is that you get some of those employers out there that have taken a bit of a hardline approach to it. Like you just mentioned, you've got some of those that have made some headlines for some really strict stances, especially on the federal government level, about it. And so that strips away the ability to think about the in-person element, and just as the focus becomes the office, and it's difficult there. So I'm just curious, as people are sitting here saying, okay, these are starting to become more commonplace. We're hearing more about return to office. What is the deal? What is going on? I'd love to get your expert and personal opinion on kind of the drivers behind return to office, as well as maybe some of the merits to it. Is there meat to what's going on there, or not really? What are your thoughts?
So I'll share with you some thoughts about why we're seeing this increased headlines of return to the office. Now, whether it's the majority or it's headlines, there's a couple things behind this. Let's first do this. I don't want to dive into the political element because that did drive a change in administration, and some federal government initiatives are changing the lens on that. Let's just take ourselves a year and a half, 2 years back. There was still a return to office driver taking place, and what was driving it.
There was,
at that point in time, one of the key drivers actually had to do with the physical space in itself. the real estate as both an
Yes.
asset and a liability to businesses taking place. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I did a video short on this as well. In the next 12 months in the US, 12 to 18 months, we've got the equivalent of $1 trillion of real estate coming up for refinancing or renewal in terms of what's taking place. And if you think about what took place in the terms of interest rates post-COVID, and even that, pre-COVID, people were getting, in 2-3%, 3% interest rates. It's
Right.
more than doubled right now. A lot of these properties are close to, if not near, being underwater based upon interest rates. So a lot of these properties have the challenge of, it's underwater. What do I do with this? And whether it's the landlord and they have to pass higher rents on to the businesses, or businesses actually own their asset, they're basically dealing with a more costly asset. And so they're having to tweak their real estate strategy. Just to take a pause back, this as an asset is driving churn about, do I want to have employees in office or not? Some people may hold on to their existing real estate and say, well, let's make sure we use it. Ergo, let's get the employees back in the office. Some might be saying, hey, you know what? I'm seeing less people coming in the office. I don't need 100% of my real estate. Maybe I can get by shrinking down to 50%. Again, go back to the opening where I said, no single playbook works for everyone. Exactly. But what you have is you have this movement of either driving people, you're trying to get a higher density of people to real estate, I guess is a good takeaway in that point in time. So that's one key driver taking place there, right?
And I mean that, I guess as I think that through, I'm thinking, okay, this is a line item, right? That is an expensive and underwater line item that when it's time to talk about your financials with your investors, with your shareholders, it becomes a bit of a black eye as you're talking through the financials, right? And so now you got to do something about that.
And one of those points that I made when I did the video, I had my assistant, my son helped me with my video that I did before, is this is hitting Main Street now, because at this transition point, this isn't just large businesses. It's now getting to second and third tier real estate markets as well too. Yeah. Now, even within the nuances of real estate, because I can keep going to that, it's really cool stuff. It doesn't mean that people aren't investing in the properties. Real estate gets broken up into what they call classes of real estate: Class A, Class B, Class C. Yeah, nice, right. Not so nice, kind of cruddy. The U.S., boy, I'm going to totally geek out on your audience. If they're not snoozing, they're taking notes. Back in the 80s, when there was a lot of tax incentives, think Reaganomics and things like that, there was a lot of real estate built out. Huge. I can show you a chart where all of a sudden you look like...
Yeah.
But what's taking place in that is the bulk of that real estate that's coming up for that 30-year timeline-ish kind of reinvestment, finish the construction line and coming up and due for reinvestment. When a lot of that stuff was built out in those incentives, it wasn't Class A properties that were built. It was kind of these crappy Class C. I want to squeeze as many bodies into buildings that are down by the, right. ugly part of the city, by the train tracks, things like that, whatever else. So within real estate itself, things are actually breaking up. There's still an interest in a market for that tier, that Class A products right now in the real estate. These are the ones that are LEED certified building. They have great cafes. They have employee, great space, well lit, all those great things. But the B's and C's, these property owners are like, my properties are crap. They're expensive right now and the interest is high. Either I need to come up with a lot of money and remodel them, or I dump them. So again, I'm just getting to another point of the real estate that's causing a lot of churn and what's driving some RTO conversation what were taking place. Now I have another one too, if you want to keep going on that.
I'm curious on the point of, so that's kind of one of the drivers there. What are your thoughts on the alternative use of RTO mandates that are not quite RTO mandates? They're more to encourage people to exit a company. Do you think?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that strategy that may be being employed? Of course, no company comes out and says this is why we're forcing you back to the office.
Yeah.
But
Amazon had a
yeah.
great initiative around that as well too. You're actually backing into one of the frameworks that I use to explain this and help people do it. I'm gonna share this and I'm gonna jump into that. It's what I call the 3W framework. This idea is this is a very complex problem, and if you try and figure it out across the board, you're going to wind up trying to boil the ocean. You won't get it done. What the 3Ws represent is three key elements. If you focus on these ideas, you can probably help solve many in-office or work problems. 3Ws are the workplace, the workforce, and the workflows. And if you think about those key stakeholders taking place, the workplace is what we just talked about, which is real estate and corporate real estate. The workflows wind up being IT and the technology, how things are getting done.
Right. Okay.
And what you're hitting on is my third one, which is the workforce. And this is the domain of HR. What do I need to have happy, successful people that are productive and effective? And how do I manage that as part of, whether it be an asset or a liability going forward? So what's taking place in a lot of that? There's all kind of challenges. When the Amazon news came out, in a very unemotional way, if you looked at it, real estate is a long-term commitment. Employees are a short-term commitment. I could let employees go and hire them back a year later, two later, when the market is viable. Real estate, typically, if I'm leasing at least 5 years of 10 years. If I'm owning the property, it's even more, is a long-term commitment. It's hard to unwind a real estate commitment. So some of that trade-off of letting people go to kind of force them in, kind of aligned to the time horizons of each of these things in terms of a company value. It's very impersonal. It's not what you want to hear sometimes, but I think that's what took place as a strategy for some people.
And that's what we're talking through, right? Is it's not one of those favorite things for people to wade into, but for a lot of people, it's a matter of I'm confused. What's happening? Why? Some things don't add up to me. So it's good to understand some of these forces in the background that kind of give you some insight into the fact that not a lot of these decisions are personal. While they feel personal, they're corporate decisions made for various reasons that aren't always obvious. So here's a little bit of what they are.
I mean, and then you get some of these very vocal people like Jamie Dimon and stuff like that, who is, I think he's just upset because he can't move the masses. He can't. Yeah. He's got a huge number of employees, and he's getting resistance from them. And if we believe he's at his level because he's a sound business leader, I'm not making the judgment yay or nay, but if he believes that someone gets there to be a CEO because they're sound, he probably sees a path forward, a strategy he's trying to follow, and he's got this very uncooperative element. And now he's becoming vocal. You're pissing me off, people. Okay, do what I'm saying. I know better. And
it comes off that way, right? That's how it sounds when you read the headlines and stuff. It's like he just doesn't care anymore. He's like, hey, look, this is how it is.
I know. And maybe he's going from an impersonal level. It's not the best thing because I think it's unfortunate because I can point to you people online who also study this as well as some other people that actually view their employees as an asset. And they view them as the secret sauce, the superpower that's going to get them through these difficult times. Whether it be, I need to get more productivity out of people. I need people to do this. I need to get more, we need to cut back on the business. I need people to help me manage through this. And so there are some more human-centric approaches out there that align that people aren't just expendable, but probably the superpower that can help you get through some of these rough times.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Now, I've got a couple of final small questions that we're going to ask on this line right here. But before we do, we're going to take a pause in the midst of our conversation about hybrid work and RTO. And this is now the moment where we jump into pause, rest, and rant. And I'm going to share a moment of travel rant with you. And if you want to take a moment while I'm sharing this to say your own thoughts on this topic, but if you've got your own travel rant, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I'm just going to be calm while you do it because it can get me very upset.
Yeah, we need to have some theme music for this. But it's and the reason I do this, right, is because we're human beings and we have a lot of our own things that come up in the course of work stuff or otherwise, and it's like, oh, hey, I'm listening to you talk about tech stuff. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm remembering that you're a human now, and that's what I hope these segments do. We all have those moments of frustration, but I actually saw something like this on posted online as a follow up to an "Am I the A-hole?" Reddit. Have you heard about that whole Reddit?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was along lines of travel of when someone asks you to trade seats on a plane.
Right.
So I was asked about this like a couple of trips ago. I was asked, my travel partner and I, we would like to sit together. Do you mind swapping seats with us? And I had paid ahead of time. It wasn't for like a nice first class seat or anything, but it was for a window seat because it was international, and I wanted the extra room to lean into the window and everything. And so they wanted to trade, and of course, where do you think I was going to end up sitting? The middle
In
seat.
the middle. Oh,
Right in the middle.
Oh.
And I was just like, I was like, is it a window seat? Because that's not a problem. Is it a? They're like, well, no, it's a middle seat. We just really want to be together. It's a long flight, and I felt backed into the corner, and I just did it while I sat there and like silently fumed the rest of the time. But
You did it?
Of course,
you did switch out?
I did switch, and I'm sitting there squeezed between two people like this, and I hate that. But anyway, there's my rant. Your thoughts for your own
There's
rant.
a funny online, it was from a movie or something like that. I saw this, and somebody was asked that. It showed this image of three people sitting together. The little girl was in the middle, the man was in the window, and the mom was on the end, and they weren't related. And she's like, my daughter's her first flight. She really wants to watch out the window, and I would love, it'd be great if you just switched the seat so she can see out the window. And the man, whose character in this video, in this movie, was, straightforward, cold-hearted, just cuts the bone. He's like, I know, but I'm going to do you the favor. I'm going to help your daughter understand that life is full of disappointments. And starting right now, if she understands that she can't get what she wants, she'll be a better person in the long run.
You're welcome.
You may not thank me now, but you're welcome. Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
okay, good. I'm going to write that one down for the next time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know who you are as a couple, but I'm doing you a favor. Trust me, you're not going to want to sit next to each other in 5 years. Okay?
Yeah, right. Sometimes you just want a little bit of space for a few moments. That's okay. Okay, we'll get back to wrapping up our hybrid work and RTO conversation.
Well, I got one though. Can I contribute?
Oh, you do have one. Perfect.
I'll be quick. I'll be quick with this because I thought about this. I, like you, love animals. I've got a dog right outside the door. I've had dogs all my life, 3 or 4 dogs. But I'm starting to see a pattern, and I'm starting to be bummed about it, and I don't know if to mention it. I'm finding more and more people are bringing their dogs to indoor places that I just don't think a dog should be. Like it kind of started with like the Home Depot. I'm like, okay. Now I'm seeing grocery stores with dogs walking through. I'm seeing even restaurants where people are dog on patio, perfectly okay. Dog inside because it's a little lap dog and I'm holding it, or even whatever.
Yeah.
And the problem is, people were pretty, they're kind of shady, and they would hide under it's my emotional support animal or some kind of support animal, and that's a great program. And I hate that people might be abusing it.
Yeah.
Now people aren't even doing that. Like, I don't even see the Amazon purchased vest that says my dog is a support. It's just Fluffy.
Yeah.
In the grocery store, Fluffy's feet are on the ground, walking around, and Fluffy's doing I'm like,
And the nature of a Fluffy, right, is that we're in a restaurant. There are certain codes that the staff has to abide by to make sure I'm not getting hair and things in my food.
Right.
Your dog is over there shaking its fur everywhere. Come on. But yeah.
Well, I agree with you. Now, I love dogs, so I have not mentioned anything to anyone. But
yeah, I'm on the same page. I'll sit there and think how cute they are. But the moment that I take that first bite of food where there's a dog hair in it, then I'm going to think differently. But
Yeah. Well, anyway, I thought that might contribute to your idea.
That's all. Thank you for throwing some out there. This is one of my favorite parts of doing the show, is these little human pieces. So I love that. So let me ask this question then. Back on the, thinking of RTO and thinking of drivers, et cetera, you've got some companies that then make headlines for putting out big, expensive ads saying, we treat our employees like adults, right? And we're letting them work from home or whatever, however they want to word it. So that just kind of begs the question of, where does the power lie in this case? Is it an employee market right now? Is it an employer market? Is it simple enough? And it's kind of a loaded question because there's so many industries this applies to. So we'll keep focused on IT in general. But is it, the kind of market where you can say, look, if you're not going to let me keep doing what I've been doing ever since 2020, then I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next employer. Is that kind of where we're at, or is there kind of a little bit more of a power shifting in the direction of the employers? What do you think?
Well, the short answer is I think things are shifting back in terms of the employer. So we are at an unemployment rate right now of 4%. This is below the median of long-term rate, which is about 5 to 6, 8%. So I mean, you would think you look at this that we're at a good place, right? That there is low unemployment, which means there's probably great opportunities for me. In fact, coming out of COVID, where we had that, close to double digits and then, more than double digits, and it came back down. Yes, there was a lot of jobs and a lot of employer things. And a lot of that, though, if you peeled back the layers there, was getting people back for frontline oriented work. And I don't say frontline by any way being like a blue collar only type point of view. Again, medical profession, a lot of professions wind up having to have an element of being in person.
Of course.
So there is, I guess what I'm getting to is some of these industries seem to have it's the employee's choice. They want me back. I can go. And true. I know people that were nurses, doctors that were able to move and create really, interesting ideas of how to work. But I think the challenge is when you get into certain industries, and the IT industry or the technology industry actually over-indexed during COVID. We hired a lot of people, and we had a lot of people working. It was actually, there was an element of land grab for employees, as a matter of fact. And I've heard of companies and executives in company talking about this almost impersonal, about having a stable of engineers and how they would approach that. When they realized they didn't need that level of employees, they started shedding them off, and all of a sudden that takes place. So industries like technology, I think, actually have different numbers than what you see as those broad-based numbers in terms of unemployment and available jobs right now. And if you get down to even more further specialty ones, like we are in the unified communication space, I think it probably also plays the same as well too. So, I think what we're looking at is this: it's a constant pendulum, and I do think there is some employer synergies in place right now.
Yeah,
and they catch the headlines. And again, I don't want to go into politics, but with the change taking place in the administration and the approach towards the federal employee base, which is huge. It's a very large base. It impacts, and it impacts not only private sector, but it impacts the media view of what's taking place in employment.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. There is shaping that goes on.
That's what we see. So it is going towards that. Now, with that said, again, there's no single playbook. There are still some great companies that say, I embrace employees as assets. I believe that's what's going to get me through rough times by having great people. These are companies that you can go look at, and there's some in our industry that have people there. We're not talking like 12, 15 years. We're talking like 20, 25 years. I mean, I'll throw out just a couple of names, like Shure, it's a family-run business, has a lot of people like that. Crestron has people like that as well too. So there are companies that seem to show I invest in my people.
Yeah, so, it's noticed. So
it is. Now here's the risk. It's never a single answer. I'm sorry, this is going to be one of your long damn shows. You're going to be like, Craig, I got to edit this up.
No, all good.
We are in a transition though of generations. And this is what creates a really interesting challenge right now. So at one point in time, about 4 or 5 years, we actually had 5 generations in the workplace. Everything from the Gen Z, millennials, boomers, Gen X, I'm sorry, the other way around. And then what's called the traditional or the old timer ones. Now these guys are going away. Boomers are kind of hesitant whether they're retiring or not, because now they're looking at assets. We've got us, Gen Xers, that are kind of like, we're doing it, but you have these other generations entering right now. The challenge that you have is AI digital nomad, working remotely, living off a laptop is a skill set that these older generations may not inherently be good at. And so what's taking place also is you might still have churn in this for people just trying to get skill sets into place as well too.
Yeah.
And so that's
You're,
that's
you're,
that's the interesting element again, which puts employers in charge. But if you're an employee and you position yourself as being well skilled, knowledgeable, I think you have a good opportunity as well.
no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. And the AI conversation is an absolute disruptor to that question, because if you go out and you peruse, job boards in any kind of way, and you just look at what's being asked for and sought out in the AI space in any kind of way, it's options galore, right?
It is.
So if you build yourself up there and become noticeable in that space, the question almost changes quite a bit, or the answer may change.
Yeah.
But
And CEO of NVIDIA famously said, your job is not going to be replaced by AI. Your job is going to be replaced by someone who uses AI better than you.
exactly.
And I think that's key. And then your job board example is a great one. It was just a year or two ago that people were advertising for prompt engineers as a role. Well, now I think we're all expected to know how to create good prompts. It's not a very specialized role. So the skill set is becoming more across the board. I just use that as one example to think about how
it's a
we
great
need to
example.
evolve.
Yeah, it's a great example, and it's evolving really fast too, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting. So what I want to kind of do on this last, I had kind of two questions that I wanted to package up into one, I guess, to kind of wrap us up, and that would be, the surgence that we're seeing right now with RTO. Beyond, like you said, we've been starting to see some of those headlines since well before administration changes and all that. A lot of them have kind of picked up and been, like you said, shaped and influenced by the federal situation. But with all that, do you have any sense or think that businesses are charging forward into that space faster than they can keep up with on an operational and technology standpoint, right? Because you got all these people coming back to an office. Now I need to support them both in meeting rooms, at their desks, and environments that will foster the productivity that we're saying that they're lacking, right? Are you think most of them are well poised for that, or that there's kind of a lot of catch up that needs to be done? It's the other half of that is really just kind of, I guess, the last question was words of advice, right? To both the employee and the employers in these situations. So with that question about the employer and are they ready for the RTO wave that is being fashioned, what is your words of advice as they navigate that and think about wading down that path? And what is your word of advice to the employee in this strange place in history that we find ourselves?
I still think there's still a lot of investment needed in technology to enable return to office. Don't lose sight of what we are. You and I are on the 20% of people within a company that lean into technology. Now look across all companies. There's only about maybe 20, 30% that are technology forward versus the other 60, 70% in the US. So what I'm getting at is you and I are the exception to an exceptional group of companies that are technology-focused companies, technology-leaning individuals. You've got a chunk of businesses out there that are still very much in a working model of pre-COVID, if you will, in terms of how they're doing some of their workflows, their IT element. They were just trying to deal with digital transformation and they got disrupted. We're beyond digital transformation, you and I personally, but so there's still a lot of opportunity for people to figure out where they are. Don't think that the majority has crossed the midway in terms of technology enablement for unified communications or workplace collaboration. Those technologies wind up being core just to help people operate, whether you're in the office now or whether you're remote. Now layer over return to office, whether they're being pushed in or not, then you have to figure out the hybrid work elements too. And that's getting to the workforce element of what we're talking about in the workplace. The humanistic, the processes. When do I have people come in the office? My recommendation, focus on when you want to return to in-person engagements, not just return to office. What do I do about my space? Well, I kind of talked to you about some ideas, whether you're in a class A, B, or C space and what might play into. If you're currently located in a B and C space, maybe downsizing is the right strategy for you. If you're in a class A space, maybe the idea of doubling down on creating an inviting work environment will continue to drive that in. And that asset can actually prove to be valuable to the quality and the quantity of employees that you pull in. So I'm kind of answering with a little bit of recommendations in there as well too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's why there's specialists in our industries that help people. Not even you and I on the technology side, but in terms of RTO strategy. You really need to look at a company and understand that. So if I were going to take a step back again, find some good information. I lean into my 3W framework when I talk to enterprises, and I think they find that helpful. That way they're not boiling the ocean. Take a look at what your needs are around your workplace. Take a look at what your needs are around your workforce, and take a look at those needs and those challenges around the workflows. Then make sure you've got those key stakeholders aligned. Historically, real estate did their own thing, HR did their own thing, IT did their own thing. Make sure you have alignment taking place among those different key stakeholders, so at least there's synergies in terms of moving towards some common goals. HR may have the goal of like, yes, I do need to downsize, and therefore workplace would need to help accommodate that, and so would IT. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe workplace is saying, I need to downsize, or I need to adjust this. I need to move more people to the suburbs versus downtown. These type of strategies need to be communicated. And then it's an iterative process. As you learn from this, IT winds up being a nice central hub because they tend to see a lot of the data. So share that data out and do that. And then ultimately, let's talk about the workers, you and I, and the people out there as well too. I think a key idea to think about, how are you happy, productive, and of value to your company and to yourself? I do believe in happy employees. As I sit here and I'm going to hang up with you and I got a list of 8 things to do and I'm going to be working late. That's not good. But I'm loving my work right now and I'm excited about it. But my point is, keep yourself skilled. Lean into AI ever since everyone's talking about it right now. Understand how you can utilize these skills to make your job better. Don't have fears of being replaced. Have an idea of how you can upskill yourself. Be open to other industries. You might have a skill set now that translates over to another industry as well if you're finding yourself unhappy. You and I are in the UC technology industry. We might have some cool information we could take over to some other industries that are actually leaning into remote work as well too. And frankly, I do believe in community. I think find your peers, find your tribe, online, in person. Things that can do this with you keeps you diverse. People say you need what? To be happy, you need an element of community, physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness. Don't lose that. So maybe I'm sounding like an overall internet guru now, and I need to sell an ebook at the end of this.
They're
session.
Good insights.
But
it's
you
good.
know this. I mean, I see you practice this. I see you doing things that are important to you, like Convene Next. I mean, that's a labor of love. I mean, that's great stuff.
It is. It's both, right? It is a labor, and it is a labor of love. It's that community piece, and that's what I love so much about that. You do have to keep yourself grounded with that, and you never know when that community is going to step in your moment of need in your career, right? So there's a huge amount of value what you just said there. For those that are like, these have been amazing insights, and I'd like to learn more about this and get a little bit deeper into that, where should they go to keep up with you, to keep in the know about what you're doing and what you're sharing?
I appreciate you asking. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm probably most active on LinkedIn because I think it's better storytelling there. And my handle's Craig Durr is there. But I invite you also to visit our website. It's the collab-collective.com. You'll find blog posts, video archives of all the interviews we did, all the insights, all the new product alerts. We kind of break down information as well too. Plus, I encourage you, we're starting to promote a newsletter that we're putting together, which is nice, concise insights across our industry and space that I think can help people. And so visit the website or find me on LinkedIn and give me a holler. DM me. I promise you, I answer all my DMs.
That's awesome. All the 2 cents I'll throw on top of that is what, one of the things I love about consuming what's going on via your content is you keep it fresh. You have a unique approach. There are usually laughs and some also human elements about what you're doing, who you're talking to. And that's what sucks me into it, right? Is that I feel like I'm connecting with real people who have a sense of humor, and that brings me into it. So
I'll give one plug. If anyone wants to get hooked on something, there's a great series that I do called the Collaboration Cafe. This is very comparable to what you're doing here, but I've had the chance to visit with industry leaders or executives or thought leaders. And I say, what would you do sitting down and have a cup of coffee? What would you talk about? What would you share? I was fortunate when we were in Barcelona. I just filmed one with someone at ISE, and we did a subway tour around
that's cool.
Barcelona. I did one in London with Tom Arbuthnot, and we went to a pub. So we had coffee, and then we had Sunday dinner, which is called Sunday Roast and Pub. And it's a lot of fun. So
doing them in person like that's amazing, especially with those different venues, changing the scenery up. I like that.
I mean, having a Guinness with Tom, come on, that's awesome. I mean, it was Helen Hawthorne from Zoom that we sat down and we had coffee. She is wonderful. I sat down with other people along the way. Espen Loberg from WebEx. I sat down with Norma Lovehogan from Neat and Brad Hinsey from Crush On. All these people have cool insights. And if you get them past the marketing fluff, cool insights.
That's awesome. There it is. People, I'll put links on the screen. You can follow Craig at those spaces, keep up to speed. Again, a great way to stay up to date with what's going on in the industry. Thank you for joining me today, Craig. Been an absolute pleasure to have you on. If you have stayed with us, I thank you for tuning in. We will be doing episode 3 next week, and we'll have more information about that on LinkedIn. And of course, all the links are going to be posted on the video and in the comments below. So if you need to get caught up with any of those, find them there. Thanks for joining. We'll see you on the next Cutting Through the Noise.